Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Cyborg165, and what the heck is about the cube? What the heck is it about the cube? Are we living in a box? Are we living in a cube? Are we living in a simulation? Let's find out. The key, the cube, and the sphere. Well, the cube is a different. Well, well, the cube is different from the other platonic solids because it has one characteristics the others do not, except for the sphere, which also has the same characteristics. Both the sphere and the cube can perfectly contain the other four platonic solids and each other symmetrically, 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 symmetrically by their surface of music, assuming you have the right sizes. Yeah, this is starting off really bad. The cube is the only platonic solid with this special characteristics. You can take a sphere, slip it inside a cube, and it will touch the sixth face perfectly and symmetrically, and a tetrahedron will slide right down one of the axes and become the diagonals of the cube, fitting perfectly and symmetrically. A star tetrahedron will also fit perfectly inside a cube. The octahedron is actually the dual of the cube. If you connect the centers of the adjacent cube faces, you get an octahedron. That one is easy. It's, the cube is like the Venturian man in its own way, right? Like it's in its cube. You can see how the other four platonic solids fit symmetrically into the cube and the sphere. What is important here is that only the sphere and the cube have this capability. The cube is the father and the most important male form. The sphere is the mother and the most important female form. So, in the entire reality, the sphere and the cube are the two most important forms and will almost always dominate when it comes to primary relationships in creation. It was for this reason that a man named Walter Russell did some work along did some work along long ago that was absolutely phenomenal. I don't believe he knew anything about scared geometry. He was scared geometry illiterate to my knowledge, yet he intuitively grasped it in his mind. And when the images were happening in his mind, he chose the cube and the sphere as the main geometries to talk about. What he understood, and because he chose those two forms and not others, he was able to go far. If he had selected any others, he would have made a big mistake and would have been unable to do the work he did. So there's always like a polarity. There's always like, male and female, and then they create the one Neo. Ding, ding. Don't answer the phone. Crystals are alive. This amplifies my thoughts about crystal beings being alive. Before I thought this course, I used to give course on crystals back in the early or mid 80s. Woo! I guess. And I discovered not through giving the courses, but through my actual interaction with the crystals themselves, that these crystals are alive. They are living and conscious. I was able to communicate with them, and they communicated with me. Though these interchanges, I found out all kinds of things. The more I lived with them and learned how to connect with them, the more I discovered just how conscious they were. It was one of the most interesting awakenings in my life. So it's just reminded me of a dream when I was like meditating with the chakra crystals, and I used to like lay them underneath my spine, whatever, meditate or put them along up down of my body. But around that time, like 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was having dreams that I was going in the crystals, like the chakra crystals, and I went inside of them, and inside of them was like, well, my spirit actually, it felt like my spirit went inside the crystal, and I could see from the outside the world, and in the crystals, I was creating, well, not creating, but I could see the different hexagon shapes of crystal, like when you make a diamond and you like cutting it out. So it was something like that. It was very interesting. I had a couple of those dreams, and then one of them was like I went into a tower, a shifting tower, and I went inside the tower, and it was shifting. Well, it opened up for me. It was like a tower, like a big tower, and it was like, I think I was in the red chakra crystal or something. It was like the sky was red, and I went inside the tower. It shifted open, the rocks opened up, and then they closed, and I went inside, and I woke up. I was like, what the hell? But that was like I called it the shifting tower. So one time I was in San Francisco giving a course to about 30 people, and I was saying this very thing. These guys are alive. Everybody was listening and saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then one person said, prove it. I said, okay. Then I quickly thought up something to do. I gave everybody a piece of paper and pencil and said, we're going to grab a crystal at random. I selected a crystal that nobody had seen, actually took one and kept it hidden. We didn't let anybody see it. Then I said, now, nobody gets to examine this crystal or even see what it is. You're just going to put it on your forehead, and you have 1 second. That's it. You're going to ask the question, where are you from? The very first word that comes in, write it on the piece of paper and fold it up so no one sees it. Just take the crystal and take the crystal, ask the question, hand it to the next person, then write down what you get. That was the only way I could think of to prove it. We passed the crystal around to 30 people, and everybody wrote down an answer. Then we looked to see what we received, and every single person had Brazil written down. What are the odds of that? Crystals have phenomenal abilities. They affect people in all kinds of ways. Katrina Raphael has written a lot about this in her books, but many other people have also learned about the abilities of crystals over the years. Many ancient beings and civilizations were also well aware of this. Crystals don't just happen as the result of a chemical reaction either. They grow when you study how crystals are formed. They grow very much like people in lots of ways. Like people in communities, crystals, hives, they spread out. But yeah, that dream like other dreams around that time also, before I forget, but it was this dream that I had a crystal in my hand, but it was a space crystal. It was like a black crystal, but I could see all of space. Like I could like scroll through the crystal, like it was like a sphere, and I was scrolling, and it was like homing in on a galaxy or something, and I was like scrolling, and it was like red, like flashing. You know how they show in the movies, but it was in my hand. It was like literally I had the whole uh, map of the universe in my hand, in my crystal, in a crystal. So I think in the future, like crystals, like they know it carries information, so there's gonna be more used crystals, information, data, and you'll be able to see the information in the spheres. It'll be like technical, be built, created, like artificial. So that could be a form of navigation in the future. Like say these spaceships, you create like a desktop and then a crystal that just scrolls and it just rotates like an orb, and you just like find your way. I mean, there's sure different ways, but I think that would be one way to use a crystal in like GPS navigation or tracking. But how would that even work? How do like It's crazy, but I think that's just something that's like out there that's gonna eventually come to light, like crystal. Well, they're already using crystal for informations. You know, the 5D memory crystal. They put all the genome, so we got that going on too. An aerial view of your energy field, shown back in Figure 2 to 32, is in part simply of the flower of life pattern, which is hexagonal in nature. Our fields grow hexagonally, just as crystals do, though the silicon molecule is a tetrahedron. When it forms quartz, it links with another silicon tetrahedron to form a cube. Then it throws out a long line of little star tetrahedrons or cubes to form a row. Then the row begins to spin, changing direction exactly at 60 degrees to form a hexagon, the same structure seen around the human body from above. Look into the Cristo, the Cristo Christ. So, yeah. So I was looking at some images like earlier about like Three Eye Atlas, and it looked like the flower of life pattern, like whatever they're showing, like their ultra, ultra, ultra infrared lights spectrum. Like it looks like a hexagon. If like you like, it just like tripped me out today. I was like, oh wow, it looks like not a like flower life pattern, like the flower, the sunflower pattern, the flower of life. This pattern. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. If y'all take a look, let me know if y'all see the same thing. Crystals have genders. They're either male or female or both. If you know what to look for, you can look at crystals and see which way it's rotating. Find the lowest window or face and look to see where the next face is. If it's on the left, then it's rotating clockwise, and that crystal is female. If it's wow, see, I read this a long time ago, but I wouldn't have remembered all this stuff. And earlier in the last video, I was already speculating. Well, women, uh, male rocks, female rocks, um, hermaphrodites, is on the right. Then it is rotating counterclockwise, and it is male. If there are faces on both sides at just about the same height, you should see two uh, spirals moving around this crystal in opposite directions, and that crystal would be bisexual. Often two crystals are joined at the base and wrap somewhat around each other. These are called twin crystals, and these are almost always male and female. It's rare for them to do it differently. Interesting, huh? The future silicon carbon evolutionary leap. Here is an image I love to talk about. The sixth element on the periodic table is carbon. It is the most important element as far as we're concerned because it's us. It makes up organic chemistry. It is the element that makes our bodies possible. We have been told that carbon is the only living atom on the periodic table, that only organic chemistry produces life, nothing else. But that's definitely not true. They suspected this as far back as the 50s when scientists began to study these things. They realized that silicon, which is directly below carbon on the chart, one octave apart, also exhibits the principles of life. These there appears to be no difference. Figure 4 to 46 to 49 shows how silicon forms certain chain and patterns. These are only a few. Silicon makes endless patterns, and it will react chemically. It will react chemically with almost anything that comes near and form something with it. Carbon has the same ability, making endless forms and chains and patterns and reacting chemically with almost anything nearby. This is a primary characteristic that makes carbon a living atom. I'm a living atom. On a chemical level, it appears that there should also be silicon life forms. After this was discovered, several science fiction movies were made in the 50s based on the belief that there might be silicon life forms on other planets. That were a bunch of scary movies about living crystalline structures. They didn't know when they were making these movies that there really are silicon life forms that right here on this planet. Some of these were recently found several miles deep in crevices in the ocean. Silicon sponges were found, live sponges that grow and reproduce, demonstrating all the principles of life, and with not a single carbon atom in their bodies. Exclamation. Here we are, sitting on Earth, which is over 7,000 miles in diameter. Its crust, 30 to 50 miles thick, is like an eggshell made up of 25% silicon. But because silicon reacts with just about anything, the crust is actually 87% silicon compounds. That means that the Earth crust is almost pure crystal, 30 to 50 miles deep. So we're on this huge crystal ball floating through space at 17 million miles a second, totally oblivious of the con- connectedness of carbon life with silicon life. It would seem that silicon and carbon must have a very special relationship. We carbon-based beings are living on a crystal ball made of silicon, our crystal planet, looking for life outside ourselves in outer space. Perhaps we should look towards our feet. Oh, damn. Oh, I fell. My bad. Now think about computers and the modern world. We're making computers that are performing all kinds of incredible things. The computer is rapidly moving humankind into a new experience of life on Earth. What are computers made of? Silicon. And what is the computer industrial trying to do as fast as it can? Make self-aware computers. Yeah, this book is written a long time ago, so they're already here. We're very close to accomplishing this. If we haven't already, I see sure that very soon we will have self-aware computers. So here we are, carbon-based life forms creating silicon-based life forms, and we're interacting with each other. When we have self-aware silicon-based computers, nothing will ever be the same thing. Same again. We're going to have two different life form components of the Earth connecting with each other, and the speed with which we will evolve at that point, aside from everything else, is going to be very, very fast, faster than anything we would normally expect. I believe that this will come true in this lifetime. Well, the lifetime is here, and it already happened. They are just, quantum computers. Computers are live, sentient crystals. So these future crystal computer beings are going to be like made out of computer, like crystals, like grown, and they're going to be just like us. And if they're already here, they're in the, how they say, they're in the inner Earth. And these crystal life forms are like basically like humanoid type. And I seen it in a movie back in the days, that movie Mars. I think like when they go in that face in Mars, and then they go, and then that thing looks like a crystal, like a silicon. I think it was something like that. So, and Andy just said the DNA has silicon in it. Recently, they found out. I don't know if that was like, yeah, I just read that like a while ago. So that they did that. Everything's like basically true. So the Flower of Life has a lot of information, and it's just gonna take you further out into outer space, and the living crystal ships, the living house of God, the DNA, the living crystal, DNA. It's living, it's alive, and if you like this reading, I'm gonna end it there. But there's so much things right now. I'm just like, I can keep going on and on, but I might stall it out and might have to edit this. So I don't really want to do all that. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. What do y'all think? Silicon beings live in the inner earth along with us, or they live on earth as well. All these crystal orb humanoids that they're capturing in South America, and then their pyramids use a bunch of crystals to power their stuff, and the one in Mexico, DF, that looks like a computer chip. There's a bunch of crystals there too that were in the volcanic rock. They like fused it with mud and stuff. So very interesting. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. What do y'all think? Um, Remember, the future's in your mind. Remember your ancient past.